Okay, you're my family. I have just taken you in. It's really great to be back again. As I've said this morning, I have not seen you all since 2019. The joke between Grace and I is that she gave me my first theology day assignment in fall 2018. And she said, how about you talk about divorce? I looked at her and said, thanks for the Debbie Downer topic. I followed that up in fall 2019 with a look back 50 years on the family. And then our lives really changed, didn't they? I remember getting the notice teaching my intro to theology course over at St. Ben's and then Family Church and Society, getting this message in March saying that we were going online. And I was like, I don't even know what that means. I am not an online Zoom person. And yet I have spent the past 2.5 years doing that. I jumped to be back here in Emmaus with you and just spending this morning with you. So thank you for allowing me to come back in. For those of you who are new, I kind of wonder what people who are returning would say about me. Kind of makes me a little nervous. You're already realizing something about me. The joke is I'm not from Minnesota. I am East Coast ocean lover, born and bred in Boston, grew up in Quincy, Massachusetts, did crazy things when I was in Boston. And I married a Minnesotan and learned something about you all. You don't leave, right? So here I am 19 years later. I initially accepted a 3-year position at St. Ben's and told the chair of the department, no way was I staying in St. Joe. I'm out of here after 3 years. Well, the joke's on me. So here I am 19 years later. I just passed in my file to be promoted for full professor as of Wednesday. So, whew. And really this place has been my home for so long. And I really owe it to the Benedictine sisters and monks for broadening my scope, because I was a Jesuit girl. So I'm the spiritual exercises, but I've learned a lot, right? And as I kind of jokingly say to my family back home, I am the new Laura Ingalls. I feel like when it comes to my family, I never thought I would say that all 3 of my children. I have a 9th grade daughter, an 8th grade daughter, and a 6th grade son. They all hunt, they all fish, and I never thought that I would be waiting for the deer meat to return to the freezer so I could make chili and all the stuff. So I've learned a lot in my time here, right? Let me also fast forward this. So that is is this too loud? I'm back going. You know me, I don't really need this sometimes. So when Grace and I talked this past spring, it's like we were starting to resurrect, right? Things were turning around for us. Even though I really want to hold all of the people that are not with us, right? There's over 1 million people that are not with us because of COVID, right? And I'm not making any political statement because of that. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. The bottom line is human life has been lost. And so let's keep that front and center. And I'm going to tell you, I started coming up with this idea. And when Grace and I talked, I probably babbled on for about 20 minutes of, well, Grace, we have to talk about this and we have to talk about that. And all this is happening. And here's the bottom line. I don't shy away from saying the hard things. I call a spade a spade. And when I started thinking about what we needed, to be honest with you, it was the leaking of the report that Roe v. Wade was going to change. It was me kind of bracing, thinking about my daughter going to Maple Grove High School, and honestly saying for the first time, by the way, she went to St. Vincent de Paul Catholic School. And now she was transitioning to a public school. And it was honestly the first time that I started to worry about gun violence, right? Like, what was my daughter going to experience walking into a school with 2,500 kids at Maple Grove High School? And then, of course, unfortunately, all I had to do was turn on the news, right? And I get the school shooting in Texas. I get a shooting in Buffalo, right? So my world is just spinning, right? I want you to know, and I hope I've earned your trust, that I'm someone that doesn't seek to throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? I am not someone that's just trying to stand up and say, get rid of everything, change everything, because the signs of the times are pointing us in this direction. But I am more than willing to stand toe to toe, reading the signs of the times, standing on the edge of the cliff and saying, what are our priorities, right? And when I started feeling like we were going to sink again, because I would just turn on the news, or people would say to me, well, we need you to talk about Roe v. Wade. And then I would get yelled at, well, we can't do that. You know, like you've got to like walk the line. I was like, okay, I'm going to reframe this conversation. So here's what I started to do. First, I started to ask myself in good old fashioned Catholic social teaching manner, what are the signs of the times, right? So obviously some things are very recent. Queen Elizabeth, climate change, inflation, don't say gay, Ukraine, mass shootings, Jackson, Mississippi, no water, global economic collapse, Roe v. Wade, Brown Jackson being appointed, Mikhail Gorbachev's passing. I mean, I could go on and on, right? So I just started to write with my pencil and a piece of paper, what are the signs of the times, right? Now, I got triggered for this presentation because back in April, the students asked me to talk about Ukraine and whether or not I felt Ukraine was a just war. So we had a panel, we had students talking about just war theory, and then I had a couple of colleagues with me. And it reminded me that this was 60 years ago, right? So bear with me, born in 1974. You all are actually the experts here, not me, okay? I started to take 2023 as we were approaching it in 1963, and thank God for Google, because you can just say what happened in 1963 and all this stuff pops up, right? I didn't even have to like go look very far. And I don't even think I did this math in my head, right? But 1963, JFK is assassinated. If you were a Beatles fan, this is when it peaked. There you go. I had no idea. Ku Klux Klan is highly active. I knew Vietnam was on the radar screen. The I Have a Dream speech, I knew that. Fun fact, we closed Alcatraz. I had no idea. James Meredith in the shooting, polio vaccine. I thought, COVID vaccine, polio vaccine. Wow, right? Shooting in Birmingham, Alabama, with Martin Luther King. I started to say to myself, what? Are you kidding me? And the funny thing is that presentation in April on just war, I thought, I know there's been a Catholic social teaching document about peace. What was it called again? And there I was sitting there going, oh my God, Kari-Shane, do connect the dots, right? John the 23rd, peace on earth. Oh my God, I think I have something, right? And so here I was putting 1963, and of course, using my calculator to do math, right? Because I was like, we're approaching 2023. How is this possible? What can John the 23rd teach me? that I'm not aware of. I've got to go back, right? And of course, what do we know about John the 23rd's pontificate? Like, not very long. But of course, what? Yeah, yeah. I mean, we would not be in the place we are today if we didn't have John the 23rd. I mean, and then I started thinking like, oh my God, imagine if he had lived, right? Like, these are fascinating things that I think about, like, I don't know, when I drive, right? So I was also then saying, what season are we entering into, right? And I was thinking about this because I'm now department chair for our theology department. And I was like, oh yeah, we have to have an Advent retreat. And, you know, what am I going to do? So I feel like we're on the cusp, right? We're on the cusp of 2023. That seems crazy for me to think about. Like, I don't know about you all, but 2023, okay. We're on the cusp of Advent. And I started to think about, okay, John the 23rd really announced for us a pathway of peace in 1963. Here we are 60 years later, heading into Advent, needing some hope. I don't know about you all, but like, I just can't go any lower. I need to hear a message of hope. And in fact, on August 18th, when the faculty met with our new president at St. Ben's and St. John's, Brian Brees, I mean, he listed all the headwinds we were facing in higher education. And literally, I stood up in front of the entire faculty assembly and said, could you please offer me a message of hope, of why I should keep doing what I'm doing every day in the classroom? And he responded, he said, the students need us now more than ever. Somebody's got to give a message of hope. So here I am this morning. I'm going to say a lot of hard things, but I'm really going to ask us at the end of this presentation, how are we going to go home and practice hope? And this isn't going to mean like we're all going to sit around and sing Kumbaya at a campfire. We know that's not how it works, right? We know that so much has changed. We know that we disagree with each other. But when we are in these heated moments of disagreement, where is the lining of hope? It's a theological virtue. It gets no attention, by the way, right? What are we doing with ourselves? And so I always feel like I need to stop and ask, what happened before? What can I learn from the past that the past has to teach me? By the way, this is where you all come in. I mean, you really are the experts. I wasn't alive. I don't even know what it was like to live through that. But I can come to the table with you and say, well, geez, I mean, I'm 48. I mean, what were you doing in 63? How did you survive this? Right? And again, for me, look at the similarities, right? When I saw that polio vaccine come right with the COVID vaccine, I was like, this is crazy. When I saw Vietnam, and then I'm thinking about Ukraine, I don't know how to drive around and not worry about nuclear war. And yet I have to tell you, I don't think my generation is even thinking about this. But I mean, I'm looking at the headlines and looking at Putin's next move, and I am scared shitless. I don't know how to navigate it. I don't know where is the church? I'm upset, like, do something. And yet I'm also going to say, I really wrestle in my head with what I've been taught is the American dream. I've been taught that I'm supposed to get a job. I'm supposed to have a house. I'm supposed to have a car. I'm supposed to have kids, blah, 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 right? And I don't know about you, but every time I go to the gas tank and go to the gas pump, I am filled with conflict. I am beyond pissed off at the price, right? Because now you're cutting into my fun and you're cutting into like what I'm supposed to be able to do as part of the American dream. Okay, I'm going to drop something here. Notice I always warn you when I'm loaded with white privilege. What are you doing interrupting my white privilege? I don't like that price, right? And then I stop and say to myself, I don't even know what it's like to hear bombs drop. I don't know what it's like to be living in my basement. I don't know what it's like to been told, pack up everything in this little suitcase and leave your country. So I say to myself, like, who the heck am I that I'm complaining about this price? When literally there's a kid sitting at a school in Ukraine not knowing whether or not it's going to happen. And really, like, Europe, NATO, we're complaining about our reliance on Russia. You know, we have younger kids saying, wake up, generation ahead of us. The climate is changing. I don't know what it's like to be in Puerto Rico right now. And you know what I've been taught to think about Puerto Rico or the Bahamas or Florida? Well, you shouldn't be living there anyways. It's an island. I mean, isn't that a line? Isn't that a line we tell ourselves? Like, why are you in the path of destruction? Why do you even want to be there? I'm like, well, we push people out, right? Okay, that was a lot. Are you still with me? Yeah, okay. All right. So let's see what we're going to do. Oh, so this is my favorite quote. If anybody knows John Lewis, this is so me. This is just the epitome of like what I do. Trouble, good trouble, necessary trouble. We're going to get into some good trouble today together. And I want to echo this point. You know a lot more than me at this point. So I'm going to do my thing, right? I'm going to do the first couple of pieces. But my gosh, when we step to this point of judging, and acting and moving towards an architecture of peace, oh, it's on you. I need your generation to tell us what to do and how to navigate things, because I believe it's in you. You know what to do. And we need your advice big time. Okay, so what are we going to do? We'll look at John the 23rd. We'll look at this brief glimpse of this good pope. He was labeled this good pope, right? We're going to look specifically at Pacem and terris. We'll just call it peace on earth for brevity and clarity, right? We'll look at the key takeaways. We'll look at the method he used. It's not flawless, right? I didn't write it, right? We'll look at the social teaching put forward. And most importantly, we'll look at the optimism, right? And here's what I've noticed about us the past 3 years. It's way easier to complain. It's way easier to write the laundry list of what's going wrong. And I got to tell you, he was doing something in 1963. It wasn't perfect, but somebody's got to be the person that stands up and says, we're gonna move in a direction of hope. And that's gonna mean that we are gonna have to change. It doesn't mean we have to march side by side and agree, but we gotta figure out what our common priorities are. I have been saying to my students in my intro class, we have to make a decision that there's not brown, white, black, purple, gray sitting in this classroom together. There's human beings. And we have got to start making some decisions from a common ground of there is a human being in front of me. And boy, are they annoying me, like my husband this morning, right? But just like I'm going to choose not to divorce him, what am I going to do when I'm encountering the person that is going to say to me, the most important issue, Kari-Shane, is abortion. What am I going to do in that moment? So I'm really asking you to think about, what are you going to do in that moment when the confrontation hits? What are the ways in which, through your words, your actions, and most importantly, your thoughts, how are you going to work towards hope and optimism? That's where I'm going to push us. Okay, I'm going to give you a chance to run if you want to leave right now, take your coffee and scone and go, right? Okay. Yeah, could we have some scotch? Right. So you ready to jump in with me? Okay, like, let's just do this. Okay. And you know this, along the way, stop, raise your hand, let me know what's working. And let's be sure to take breaks, all that good stuff. Okay. Okay, let's do a little bit of the good Pope. You know a little bit of this probably already. Your brain is having flashbacks. By the way, you don't have all these slides. I apologize. And that's just because I would have killed 50,000 trees, because I have like 40 slides. I use slides to prompt me, so I apologize for that. So we know this is papacy begins in 1958. He's going to die 5 years later, right? No, that should have been, sorry, I messed up on my date here. That should have been not in June of 68. 63. Yes, he dies in 63. Sorry. This is where, you need to have somebody check your PowerPoint, right? Okay, what are his accomplishments on the side besides Vatican II? Well, I'm sure you remember this moment, right? He introduces the vernacular into the church to replace Latin, right? And I mean, he is met with resistance, right? Like, who does this guy think he is, right? I thought this was very interesting. He's the first pope to appoint Japanese, African, and Filipino members to the College of Cardinals, right? So there's your little fun fact when you're sitting around playing trivia, right? At your local coffee shop, right? We know that he writes Mater et Magistera in 1961, and he follows up with 1963, Pacem and terris. But of course, what he's known for is that he's going to convene the Second Vatican Council, right? I mean, nobody really cares about all those other things, right? I don't even think people care about peace on earth, right? Except we're going to care about it today, right? And there's such a shock and surprise at what he does with Vatican II, right? So we always know that I come here and say, like, that could be a whole other theology day, right? So let's get into focusing on peace on earth. So written on April 11th, 1963, right? So here's where I'm going to go through, and I'm going to do a little bit of teaching for like 20 minutes. So bear with me, right? And I'm getting this from Charlie Curran's analysis. Like, Charlie Curran is just the person to go to in our field when we need to like look at. He's written a whole huge book that looks through the papal documents, right? So the funny thing is this whole entire cyclical really stems from a level of trust that John the 23rd has, right? He trusts that we as human beings can discern the right order of relationships. Okay, like, what does that mean? I feel like an easier way to say this is that John the 23rd knows that we can make the right decision. We can see what is true, good, and beautiful, okay? And I want to tell you, like, I constantly stress to my undergrads, you have to have a belief in the human being able to know what is true, good, and beautiful. It says a lot about what you think about human beings if you believe they can know what is true, good, and beautiful, right? Now, some of you are thinking, okay, lady, but like, what's my true, good, and beautiful is not so-and-so's true, good, and beautiful. Yes, right? But let's not go down the relativist slippery slope of saying it doesn't matter, right? We can't get to the point that I'm now facing in my classroom where all the students do one of two things: whatever, right? Whatever, who cares, right? Or I believe this, and if you don't believe this, I know how I can solve this problem. Violence, right? And I didn't even specify the kind of violence, right? There's multiple options for them, right? Yes, guns, words, harassment, you name it, right? So this ability to discern the right order of relationships. By the way, in theological language, it's called natural law methodology, right? We don't have to get that hoity-toity, right? What does this mean? Well, between persons, individuals, and states, in the global community, we can see what is right and wrong, right? We're not idiots, right? What's positive in this outlook is that John the 23rd is going to address all people of goodwill, right? This document is not only going to go to Catholics, right? This is any person of goodwill knows what's true, good, and beautiful, right? Of course, the challenge that's going to be present in this encyclical by using this natural law methodology is, well, how are you going to let this ability to see the true, good, and beautiful connect up with also our doctrines of faith and sin and redemption, right? Like, how are you going to weave this all together? He really doesn't, right? But again, you got to give people a break. They can't do everything. They're not Aquinas, right? They don't write like 10 volumes, right? They write one book. So put differently, there's a focus for John the 23rd on our freedom and our human rights. But remember, this is where it's that thin balance between we are called to freedom, but freedom doesn't mean you get to do whatever you want, right? It's not the relativist view of freedom. And it's not the, well, whatever, right? Free to live out what you've been called to be as a human being, right? And if you don't look at a human being and think they have the ability to pursue truth, goodness, and beauty, you're going to be on the other side of just saying whatever, or I'm just going to do what I want and you do what you want. And then you really have a mess on either side, right? So what are we going to try to do here? Well, he's going to try to apply doctrinal principles and directives to the reality he's facing in 1963 and the dilemma he's facing, right? And really what he's trying to do is read the signs of the times and say, there is a balance here that we are going to have to pursue. We are going to have to pursue human freedom and human rights. Because of course, tell me what's looming out there. Why is he picking up this notion of human rights? What happened in 1947? What? Yes, and the creation of what? Well, yes, is the UN, the United Nations, right? You know, do you see, that's a very big optimistic leap, right? Okay, now how many people in here will admit right now, when I said United Nations, you chuckled? Anybody chuckle like, what power does the United Nations have? Are you kidding me? Biden just spoke to the United Nations Assembly, right? Okay, yes, Judy. Judy just said we have to keep going. You have a choice to make, right? And this is where I'm going to start to get at what hope looks like and what optimism looks like and what the glass half full looks like versus half empty. Because really, I think the pessimism out there is, who cares about the United Nations at this point? Who cares about human rights? Who cares about human freedom? Because tell me what is operating post World War II. If I've got this framework of human rights and freedom, what's going on elsewhere in the world? President Biden keeps trying, but tell me what's, yes, yes, absolutely. Yes. So tell me though, right, tell me what happens. Tell me what happens. Okay, the thing I'm also trying to get at, if John the 23rd is over here talking about freedom and human rights, is there also not another framework at work saying freedom, human beings have no rights, they have no freedom, they will live under our communist rule? That's a terribly different framework of what the human being is capable of, correct? And John the 23rd is not about to accept that framework. Now, here's the dance that's going to happen both with John the 23rd and especially JP2, right? Because everybody wants JP2 to call out communism and Marxism and call out capitalism, right? That's a whole other story, right? But you can see there's two frameworks going on. John the 23rd wants you in the framework of humans have freedom to choose because he believes we can choose the true, good, and beautiful, and humans have rights. I mean, just pause for a second. If you believed every human being that you encountered deserved the same rights, I find that incredibly hard to swallow because we live in a system that says, well, yeah, sure, of course we all have human rights. Of course there's the dignity of the human person. Okay, well, I just told my students yesterday, I said, okay, we have an incident on campus and we've got an accusation of stalking. And here's what I said. I said, okay, we're going to support the victim. And what are we doing for the perpetrator? Does the perpetrator still have dignity? Do the persons that commit mass shootings still have human dignity? Does the person who is in my life, who is so, I'll just be funny about this, is so stupid and wrong in how they vote and what they think, have human dignity? Yeah, right. I mean, we want to say no. I mean, our actions say no, right? And so what does this mean? To be focusing on human freedom and rights and to not give up, right? And not go down the rabbit hole of stupid United Nations, stupid this, stupid that, right? I mean, what are you left with? Stupid. Stupid does what's that? There's like a line, stupid does. Yeah, stupid is what is it? Stupid is what stupid. Yeah. I mean, what is the choice that you are going to make internally, right? So keep moving. He has some layers of continuity with the tradition, right? So he's going to say dignity of the human person is the most important operating principle here. Hey, what does that mean on the ground, John the 23rd? Help me here, right? We must avoid the extremes, the push towards individualism and the push towards collectivism. So what does it mean to hover right down the middle when all you want to do is go do your own thing, right? Because those stupid people over there are wrong, right? Common good is the end of the state. God, we just love throwing this phrase around. Common good. I have a learning goal on the common good. And I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to do to get my students to begin to possibly understand it's not all about them, right? Principle of subsidiarity is at work in peace on earth. The state has the ability to call the shots and govern properly, right? States should do all they can to allow for individuals and families to help themselves, right? What's interesting, I think, is that John the 23rd is not yet going to use the word globalization, right? It's just not in the vocabulary yet, right? But what does it mean when we say we're in global economic collapse? I don't know. I mean, okay, I'm going to show my cards here, right? I turn on NPR and I hear like, listen, Germany's making new plans for new sources of energy. But like, again, here's me complaining in Maple Grove. It's 374. What's really happening in developing and third world countries? In other words, the gap between the rich and poor countries is only widening, right? But his major contribution in this document is he is going to say, we must talk about peace. And I was like, talk about peace? What do you mean talk about peace? What does that mean? And of course, here's me coming in from the outside. I was like, doesn't really look like you got a lot of peace going on. Like if I look at 1963 and then fast forward to 1968, you know 1968 is my favorite year because it's when Humane Vitae comes out, right? So, I mean, I'm all about 1960, 1963, 1968, and I'm all about looking and going, doesn't really seem like you have your act together in the 60s. It seems like everything's blowing up. But that's my perspective, being able to look back, right? That's my failed lens. That's my, oh, thank God I didn't live then. And now I'm sitting here going, well, I actually think that they could hold me accountable here as I put my little Wordle up for 2023. And I was like, oh crap, I don't really have anything on them, right? They can throw all this in my face about what the world is like in 2023, right? And who do I think I am that life is better, right? So he talks about peace. He's going to offer a vision of peace and the means and the programs that should be used to make peace present is outlined. And again, I got to tell you, you should go back and read this because it's like, what? This is like another language. Peace is possible in John the 23rd's worldview, right? There is not going to be any real engagement with just war theory. What's so amazing in this encyclical, he's not even going to give a nod to the concept of war. There's an absolute shift in the encyclical. I'm not talking about war. I'm only talking about peace. Again, for me, this is the first time I'm giving this presentation. I'm starting to write an article on it for the 60th anniversary. And I'm just, every time I think about this, it's going a little bit deeper in my mind. What would it mean to not engage the framework of war or even just war theory, right? And actually, when I gave the presentation in April and I only talked about peace, I was highly criticized. I had 2 students come up to me after the presentation and just start yelling at me. How could you not be in favor of just war theory? What do you mean you're talking about peace and Pax Christi and all this stupid stuff? And I was like, we don't know how to talk about peace anymore, do we? Right? We're just constantly reacting to war, to violence, to discrimination, to hurt, right? What would it mean to shift our whole entire framework? He did it in Peace on Earth. He did it for us. He showed us a way. What does it mean for us to actually do it, right? Because he says in paragraph 166 through 173, we're all called to be peacemakers. And this is where I was like, shit, what do you mean I'm called to be a peacemaker? I am a peacemaker. No, I'm not a peacemaker. I've been trained not to be a peacemaker, right? My theological training has trained me not to be a peacemaker, right? I know the right answer, right? But I'm not trying to be annoying with this, but I am trying to ask, what do you mean when you say you want me to be a peacemaker? And I don't want to live only in my head. What would it mean for me to be a peacemaker when I get up in the morning and I function with my family and children? What would it mean for me to be a peacemaker as I go into my work environment, right? Yes. Yes. Tell me your name again. Tammy. Tammy's saying, you know, I try to remember, take up the cross and follow me, right? What does that mean for us, right? Tell me your name again, because I know Dottie. Dottie says, don't you have to be at peace with yourself? Okay, I'm going to throw something out here that I think we should muddle on. And actually, we really need to do a theology day on mental health, right? Dottie, what does it mean to be at peace with yourself? I'm not asking that facetiously, right? Because here's what I'm worried about. What? Throw out some things. Yes. Yep. Yeah. Yeah, Dottie is, for those of you who are online, Dottie's offering up, like, what does it mean to be at peace with yourself? Accepting, non-judgmental, right? Non-judgmental to yourself first, right? You can't control everything, and you can't control everything that people did to you, right? But you can start to be non-judgmental towards yourself, right? Non-judgmental to others. Jump in. Tell me your name.
Can I give you the mic?
Marge.
Mark, you want to use this?
Well, I think it might, to me, if I wake up in the morning, it's my priorities.
Yeah.
So it's what is the most important thing here? The humanity of the people here, how I'm going to get along with them versus my own way.
Right.
So if my priority is getting along, I'm going to subjugate the small things, like don't sweat the small stuff.
Right.
And just say, to be at peace, we're just going to discuss the major things and let the other stuff slide if it's not important. So to me, that's how we keep peace where I live.
Yeah, go ahead, jump in.
That I wanted to say at this point had to do with Jesus. Oh,
yeah.
Jesus being, he said, and I'm not exactly sure where, it's one of the Gospels, he says, I did not come to bring peace. He actually says, I came to divide.
Right, right. Well, and I would follow, so let me kind of pull all this together. First, I just want you to realize the shift in this encyclical from war to peace. I think this encyclical has sort of fallen off to the wayside. We don't pay a lot of attention to it. Why would we? Because we were about to implode with Humanae Vitae. John the 23rd is about to leave us very soon, right? Unfortunately, right? Imagine if he was around to really see this out more, right? I wonder, right? But there's something that's been placed here for us to think about and for us to try to remember amidst all the other priorities, right? And I think the point of being at peace with yourself, what I want to be careful of is doing this dance between, sometimes that's way easier for some people than others, right? Because the crosses are different that we bear because we're actually not peacemakers to each other, right? And so some people's ability to be able to be at peace with themselves and not judge is far more difficult, right? It doesn't mean that we don't go down that road of trying to be at peace with ourselves. But I'm kind of wondering if you could do a nod of the head, like, isn't being at peace with yourself a lifelong process? Right? Like, I'm looking at you going, wow, if you have peace with yourself figured out, did you like take a pill for that? And can I have it too? Right? Because I don't know. I mean, I actually love coming to these because I'm like, they're still standing. If they're still standing, I'm not going to ask your age. I've got you all at like 50 and I'm back at 30, right? But I kind of look out at you and go, they're still standing. Maybe I have a chance to still stand too, right? It's a long process. Okay. Did not come to bring peace, came to divide. Because what's the priority going to be? Is the priority going to be the world standards, the culture standards that says, do this, do that to fit in? Or is it going to be the standard that every human person has human dignity? You got to pick a side. Are you on the side of war or are you on the side of peace? Now, I can just see people, this is like a friendly crowd, but like if I went out and I said that, people would be all over me. You're so naive. You're so stupid, right? You're just living in a naive world that you think it's going to come down to war and peace. Okay, well, you know what? I'm getting on the peace bandwagon and I'm taking hope with me. So watch out, right? Because I'm going to keep going on the hope bandwagon because I know all you want me to do is cave and give in. And I'm not giving into the violence. I'm not giving into the quick fix. I'm on the hope bandwagon, which I'm assembling the cart. I'm hoping that by the end of the presentation, you're going to jump on too, right? So we know this is dropped in front of us in 1963, right? What else? Well, human rights are given a central role and the concept gets developed, right? Human rights are going to form the basis of the human order. Again, this seems very lofty, right? The rights are universal and inviolable. And what Pacem and terris will do is link that there is both a right and a duty, okay? And I'm pointing this is another shift he's going to do in the encyclical tradition. Leo XIII is really only going to talk about your duties. John XXIII is going to say, yes, totally get it. We have duties too, blah, 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 blah. John XXIII is going to say, we have duties and we have rights, and they must go together, right? And so you can see the encyclical tradition expanding its outlook, right? Because of course, what's going to happen as the 20th century progresses is the threat of totalitarianism, right? And I mean, Leo can't see that, right? Leo can't see what's happening in the late 1800s, but it's about to take off at the start of the 20th century, the early 1900s, and we're going to have two major world wars within 50 years, right? So point and rights and duties go together, right? What I love is that John XXIII is going to say we have civil or political rights, but we also have social and economic rights. We need to understand that we should be free from violence, free from totalitarianism. We have the right to food, clothing, shelter, rest, medical care, necessary social services. We have the right to a worthy standard of living, right? all of that gets echoed in paragraph 11. Have we met that? What would it mean to even start to make a dent towards that, right? Point number 2, there is a connection between what's going on, what he wrote in 1961 and 63. In section 4 of Mater et Magistra, he talks about the reconstruction of social relationships and truth, justice, and love, right? So what he's going to actually do, he has laid the groundwork for peace on earth. If we go back and actually look at the 1961 encyclical, he has started to say, we've got to shift to these 4 values. We've got to shift to truth, justice, charity, and freedom. And the other thing that's operating in the background for him that will become center stage at Vatican II is the dialogue on religious freedom, right? There is so much untapped about John the 23rd leading up to him calling Vatican II. And he is trying to shift the ground that we are on. And to me, a fascinating way. And I'm taking my inspiration from him and saying, how can I change the dialogue for my students? How can I change the dialogue in my home? How can I change the dialogue from war to peace with the people around me? In a way that doesn't just say, I'm going to go and take my white privilege and hang out over here and ignore everything that's going on over here, right? So especially from part 4 of Peace on Earth, and then we'll take a break. He acknowledges our growing interdependence. He acknowledges the technology and scientific progress we have made. He acknowledges the interdependence of national economies. I mean, people, this is like old news for us, but like this is huge what he's doing in 63, right? He acknowledges universal common authority, right? We should have common authority, not because we are using force, right? So he is going to absolutely praise the work of the United Nations. And going forward, what we're going to see in all Catholic social teaching documents is this worldwide focus, right? So what did we say about Vatican II? Throwing open the doors to the world. John the 23rd starts that bandwagon, starts that approach and says, throw the doors open, engage with the world, right? Couple more things about war and disarmament. Dialogue is necessary. I did not know this, but John the 23rd was absolutely crucial in averting the Cuban Missile Crisis, and really promotes this idea that we must dialogue together, right? And this is what I love about what he says about nuclear disarmament. You don't achieve nuclear disarmament by making sure both sides have equal stockpiles. You achieve it by mutual trust alone. That is a phrase that stopped me in my tracks. Mutual trust alone, not, okay, do you have 500 guns? Great, I'll go get 500 too. What does that mean, right? What's interesting though, is that he will not call for unilateral disarmament or take the pacifist approach. He will simply say the path forward is mutual trust alone. Can we just stockpile and call it a day? We have totally gone down the road of equal stockpiling. That just seems, but I'm just trying to say, I'm ready to like do jumping jacks. Look at what this man has put in front of us. Not war, peace. Not force, but mutual trust. Not individualism or totalitarianism or collectivism, but human rights and freedom. So here's the unrealistic optimism of peace on earth. There needs to be a change of heart and there needs to be a change of structure. But he is naive, or so the commentators say. The commentators shred him because he has not talked about human sin. He has not talked about the effect of human sin, right? It's not his goal. He wants to talk about peace. He wants us on a different page, not stuck in the same ruts that we're in. He wants to go to a different page. What will it mean for us to go to a different page? So I'm gonna be like that. Believe it or not, I am not a good Scrabble player. I don't really know why. I don't know. I don't know. I am realizing we've sat for quite a while. Do we want to have a couple of comments that you want to put into the mix, and then we can pause and come back? Anybody want to offer anything up right now? Why don't you just raise your hands and then we'll put it all in the pot and I'm going to think about it. Molly.
Well, I find this lecture very depressing because I feel that we have slid down these rabbit holes and we're not interested in talking with each other, and especially in America with where we're at. And
It's okay.
and you have brought it to the forefront. It's all.
It's all right. It's okay. Judy, put something on. So Molly is saying, I find this depressing. That's totally okay. We're gonna get there. Judy's gonna offer what?
Yes, glass is half full.
Put your name.
The glass is half full. He spoke of peace, and we have to go back to the social teachings when the church, which I believe as St. John's is certainly working towards the seven, I believe, social. What you're looking for is your goal is justice. And if we have justice, we'll have peace. But we must work hard for justice, which are many of the ills of the world right now, the unjust. And we'll get there. Micah.
Yeah. Judy wants to put justice on the table. Go around and get a couple more, and then I want to do a break.
I recall with joy Father Paul Nelson when I was growing up. Well, I'd have to be in high school or thereabout. And his homilies were exactly about peace. And one elderly woman came up to him, and he said, "Why don't you preach about abortion?" And he said, "I do not preach about abortion because I want to do something about abortion with the people coming to me openly, and I can help them." Fast forward, this woman's daughter came to him with that very big problem. He didn't mention how or what happened, but I find that with great joy. People loved him, and it was all about peace.
Awesome. Thank you. Put that on it. Well, I'm putting this all in the pot and I'm stirring it, right? Go ahead. Oh.
I was fortunate that I was in the seminary during that time, and I was conservative Republican and concerned as we got into the Vietnam War, and I thought we had to stop the communists, so forth. And there were a lot of other seminarians that felt strongly to we have to talk and work for peace and so forth. And the Vietnam War was quite tragic. But then Pope Paul VI came and talked to United Nations in '65,
Right.
the importance of that too and so forth. So I felt real fortunate living during that time. But you summarized it real well, what was going on.
God, I wish I could be there. John, go ahead. Put something in the pot and we'll
I'm going to give an opposite view. Since I grew up in the South Bronx and was afraid of going out, period, and I loved a heavy rain because I could go out safely. I live in a place now, what can I do? I can open the door, walk out, and not worry about what I am going to encounter. I think most of us do that. We don't realize it. People can even leave their door unlocked when they go out for a little while. Amazing. During the Cuban Missile Crisis, it wasn't a matter of, oh, maybe there will be nuclear war. People were terrified. The ships from Russia were approaching. There was going to be a conflict that day. The war might begin in a few hours. The bombs might drop. What we're going through now is not really that bad. And I'll say a little bit more about that. You hear all the bad things because that's what sells. People want to know what they should be afraid of. They don't care about what good is going on in the world. I will look at the Washington Post, but I will read the Christian Science Monitor because it tells about people making a difference. It tells about all the good things that are going on. The UN does do good stuff. And believe it or not, since I'm a mathematician, you look at the statistics. Wars have been decreasing. Gun violence has been decreasing. Fatalities in auto accidents have been decreasing. My goodness, there is so much reason to hope that there is progress on all these things. Let's not get caught up on what should I be afraid of. It's what drives everybody separately, drives everybody apart. We must concentrate that everybody cares about their children, whether they're black, yellow, white, doesn't matter. They care about their children. That's the uniting factor. We do want peace. We want a good world for our children. There is that in humanity.
Let's take a break. 10:15. Like 10-minute breaks, get up, stretch, move around. And we'll jump into, we're going to fast forward 60 years. We're not going to age a bit. Okay, so, you know, I want to acknowledge, right? I think there's something there. And, you know, I'm selfish here. I'm looking back. I need to learn, right? But I do think I am coming from somewhat of a standpoint of Molly saying that this is just depressing, right? And even when I put the two Wordle slides side by side and see the events, it is depressing, right? But I do feel, and I do believe, God is calling me to a place of hope, right? And, you know, to Dorothy's point of, you know, finding peace within yourself, I kind of shun from that a little bit. And it's my own insecurity of why I'm shunning from that. Some of you in this room know my father committed suicide when I was 19 years old. I remain fascinated by who the person my father was. I don't have any access to those answers, but I got to tell you, anybody that was ripped out of Athol, Massachusetts at 18 and told to get on a plane and head to Vietnam, I don't know why you wouldn't kill yourself, right? I mean, I have deep sympathy for my father. Some of you in this room know, but that person is actually not my biological father. My biological father and my mother split when I was 2 years old. I have tremendous amounts of questions inside of me of what went wrong. And let me just tell you, I've learned not to ask that question because there's two sides to the story. Actually, there's 50 sides to the story. And it's not really helpful for me to ask anybody the sides of those stories, right? My mother remarried when I was a junior in college. His name was Freddie. They married in 1995 and he passed away from Parkinson's in 2018, March of 2018. This person who came into my life changed my world. He was the father I never had. My mother, by 2019, had fallen victim to a scam, an online scam. And Bill Logan was going to rescue her, except there was one problem. Bill Logan didn't exist. I figured out in spring of 2019 that Bill Logan didn't exist. Bill Logan existed on Facebook in New York. But Bill Logan, the person, was not the person my mother was talking to. So $500,000 later, FBI meetings in Boston, the FBI training me and telling me Bill Logan knows everything about your mother, but knows everything about you and Ben. Lock everything, change everything, fix everything. And unfortunately, they got to my mother. And I don't speak to my mother anymore because my mother ran off and married someone else. And to protect my children and to protect my family, I had to cut ties. My mother is somewhere in Phoenix, Arizona. I wish her well. I don't know what it's like to walk in her shoes. I am trying desperately hard to not judge my mother because I just don't know. I don't know what went wrong with my father. I don't know what went wrong with my second father who committed suicide and what we lived through. I know that when she married Freddie, it was the happiest I had ever seen her. And 5 years into their marriage, the diagnosis of Parkinson's came through. And that diagnosis of Parkinson's was interesting to me because all 6 of his friends that grew up in Quincy all got Parkinson's. Okay, they all got Parkinson's and they all played in the same marsh where the same toxic chemicals were being dropped. And he was the last of the 6 of them to go. Don't tell me that's not ironic, right? Don't tell me that that's just happenstance, right? And so I watched him take his last breath. And I saw what it did to my mother. And I knew in that moment she was gone. And I knew when I last spoke to her and she was trying to tell me that Bill Logan was real. And I had the FBI agent standing next to me and saying, you need to let go. It's done. Your mother is not physically dead, but your mother has been brainwashed. You need to let it go for the safety of you and Ben and the 3 kids because they know everything. They know where you are. God bless my mother somewhere in Phoenix, Arizona. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if I'm ever going to get a call. I don't know if I'm ever going to go to my mother's burial. But I'm going to stand here and I am going to have hope because you all give me hope. You lived this stuff. And I've got 3 kids looking at me. And where's Sister Karen? Sister Karen said, sometimes you just have to stand there and be a beacon of hope. And you have to have the optimism. And to be honest with you, here's what my theology brain is worried about. Okay, I got 2/3 of this essay written, ready to send out to the Journal of Catholic Social Teaching. I know how to do the song and dance. I know how to write the things. I know how to quote. I know how to write footnotes, right? I know how to do all that stuff. I can bow to the system, right? But when it comes to this third part, a theology of hope towards an architecture of peace, one of my colleagues said, well, I mean, what are you writing? This just sounds so, I don't know. He couldn't come up with the word. And I just said, well, if the Journal of Catholic Social Teaching doesn't want to talk about hope and optimism and doesn't want to talk about John the 23rd and a way towards peace, I don't want them publishing my essay anyways. Right? I don't need this published. I'm doing this to be that beacon for my students. And you know what? Go ahead, throw the mud at me. I don't care. Because I'm not going to turn into a whatever. And I'm not going to turn into a nun, right? And this, yes, that's true both ways, right? right? I don't know how they do it, right? I don't know how the sisters and monks do it, but I'm not going to give up because I feel like my whole life, the line and the temptation has been just give up. Don't ever think you can have a family. Don't ever think you can make this all come to fruition. And what I want to know as we march on into this presentation is, you came here, I got you here, right? Like I'm dangling a carrot. You want hope and you want peace too. So let's jump 60 years ahead of time, right? And let's go to Pope Francis, which I think many of us love Pope Francis, right? I mean, if I was Pope, it would be better, but we know that's not going to happen, right? So, I mean, we're going to move on, right? But here's Pope Francis, right? I'm going to do the same thing, you know, the very good positive things that are coming out of Fratelli Tutti in 2020, right? It's his first solo authored encyclical, right? I mean, he's really going to, well, he writes Laudato Si, right? I keep forgetting about Laudato Si. See, I'm not an environmental ethicist, so I really got to pay attention to that. But he's going to write this. You know, there's going to be some people who are going to complain, like, why are you not using more inclusive language? But there's something there, right? And the thing I'm going to pull out of Francis, right, is this sense of encounter, right? What does it mean to encounter someone? And I think this, if we take Pacem and terris and we combine it with Fratelli Tutti, we can start, we've got more pieces to the bandwagon. But when I move to section 3, it doesn't matter whether or not the church builds the bandwagon or the priest stands up and builds the bandwagon, or I stand up and say, here's the bandwagon. I'm going to argue each one of us has to figure out, do we want to be on the bandwagon? How are we going to be on the bandwagon? And I don't think we have to do it all the same. But I think we have to be a beacon. And so I am going to like kind of beg you to get on the bandwagon with me. So I have to try to convince you now. So here goes. You ready? All right, let's go to Grant. Do you like this picture? My kids were like, what's that? I was like, poor child, right? I'm sorry you don't have your Spotify playlist on your phone, right? I was like, that's a fast forward button. What's fast forward? I was like, I can't even deal. I was like, you people need a week on Netflix with commercials, right? Like, you people need to know what it's like to wait, right? I said, you don't even know what it's like to try to run and make microwave popcorn, right? Like, I mean, that seemed brilliant in my mind, that the popcorn could be made in 2 minutes, right? Loaded with chemicals that would kill us, right? But I mean, we're not really going to talk about that, right? So they didn't know what the fast forward symbol was. And I was like, oh God, okay. Like I always have to try to remember my children are the next generation. They're bringing something different that I don't have. I was like, you should know what this button means, right? Okay, so again, here's the signs of the times, right? Just a quick side note, did anybody just really want to be in London on Monday with Queen? Wouldn't that have been amazing to witness Queen Elizabeth? No, John is like, nope, I don't want to be there. Now, I don't know. I secretly kind of want to be there. I was there back in 2004 and like, I don't know, I would have loved to have seen it, right? I also feel like poor Mikhail Gorbachev did not get like any press, right? Like we really didn't pay attention to him. I was like, should we have, right? Yeah. And can I just say this too? Like, I keep trying to follow up on what's going on in Jackson, Mississippi. What kind of world do we live in that I don't even know how the mayor stands up in Jackson, Mississippi and talks. That is some inspiration, right? I mean, to just have been going on for years with a poor water system, right? Anyways, here we are, October 3rd, 2020, the encyclical of Pope Francis, Fratelli, tutti, on fraternity and social friendship. I don't like the title. You know this about me. I don't like the title. I don't want to talk about fraternity, right? It's fine. I'm getting over it, right? Okay. So it's his second encyclical, right? One of the commentators, John Reese, says, if we take Laudato Si and Fratelli Tutti, we're going to see a grand strategic statement on the part of Francis. The heart and soul of the document is going to come in chapter 2. There is a 14,000 word reflection on the parable of the Good Samaritan. In there, Francis will say, our faith can lead us beyond our grieving indifference for the others in our midst. Really, is this not just a beautiful meditation on what life together as a human family can be? Forgot my other quote. Anybody know a little fun fact about the parable of the Good Samaritan? Where's it from? What gospel? Luke. Does it appear in Matthew, Mark, or John? No. Totally a Lucan invention, so to speak, right? Where the author of Luke places the Good Samaritan story is so perfect for the reader. Because really, what you see Luke's presentation of Jesus doing is just starting by chapter 6 of just Jesus going on and on and on about lessons, about how to live, right? I secretly love Luke's gospel. The major focus is economics, not sex, not divorce, not abortion, not contraception, not hooking up, right? By the way, those words are not found in scripture, right? And where whoever writes Luke places this story, it's like it just comes to fruition. Because this story of the Good Samaritan is just so out there. And I can only imagine reading it as if Jesus was telling this story. And it's like, yeah, pay attention to that outsider, that person you're not supposed to touch, right? Can you also imagine being the priest and Levite in the crowd and hearing Jesus tell this parable, right? And how pissed off and annoyed you would be, like, what do you mean I didn't stop to help, right? But I mean, some people in this crowd over time have said to me, where is the church on this? Where is the church on that? Does anybody remember what I first said in my first theology day? Like when we were complaining, where is the church on this? Where is the church on that? Yeah, we are. We don't need the building. You are the church, right? I tell my students, like, Okay, we've gone through biblical criticism right now. You actually don't need me in class anymore. They kind of like pop up like, are you going to cancel class? Like, are we out of here now? Like, and I said, no, but you don't need me to do the interpretation. You can read the scripture yourself. You can think for yourself and say something other than whatever, right? So here we are. Parable of the Good Samaritan. It must have been stunning to hear, to read. And of course, well, the other running joke from my other sessions is I have a long list of people that I want to meet when I die, right? We all know who my first one is. Glenn, who's my first one? Who's the first person I'm talking to when I'm dead? Yeah, John Paul and I are going to have a long come to Jesus talk, a very long come to Jesus talk, right? Paul the Sixth is behind him because we're going to have a long talk about Humana Vitae, right? Seriously, and then the author of Luke. Talk to me about this parable. Talk to me about your intention in putting this in here, right? And I'm not trying to discredit. I'm not trying to be like a historical Jesus scholar and be like, oh, it doesn't matter. It's fascinating to me that this parable has held on. Francis runs with it, right? Absolutely runs with it. So at the heart of the matter for Francis is this notion of radical hospitality, right? What does that mean? Well, the overarching theme in Fratelli Tutti is this: to see life's detail in all its fullness and carry it all and reach outward. In other words, see and acknowledge it all. The beauty, the joy, the goodness, the truth, and the pain, the suffering, the injustice, right? Extend your circle, I love this, of comfort and concern. Not just individuals for Pope Francis, but countries. Broaden your circle, right? In Fratelli Tutti, paragraph 150, who cares where your neighbor was born? Wow. That's an immigration policy. Who cares where your neighbor was born? So he's going to spend and give a long list of the materialisms and the wrongs that are happening. So much so that I was like, oh my God, I'm trying to be hopeful and peace and optimistic. If I put them all up here, we would totally fall off course. I don't need to tell you what's going wrong. You already know it. You already know the challenges, right? A specific root within the letter is this notion of interfaith encounter. So again, the story of the Good Samaritan, right? But I don't think Francis wants us to think, oh, well, are you only talking about like, let's go dialogue with Muslims, let's go dialogue with Jews. I think we should think of interfaith as more broad than that, right? What are our faiths? What are our beliefs? What are our values? What are our opinions? And what would it mean to expand that to people we agree with and we don't agree with, right? So faith can lead us, again, beyond our grieving indifference toward the other that is in our midst. And surprise, 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 what's Francis's foundation? Well, it's the foundation we've been told over and over and over again. The absolute dignity of the human person sitting near you, by you, around you, and the person you can't even see or access, right? So Fratelli Tutti will exhort the religions to be models of dialogue, brokers of peace, and bearers of the message of transcendent love to a hungry, cynical, and uprooted world. Religions, Be the beacon of hope. Welcome the stranger. Forge a relationship of hospitality regardless of the hostility you might receive back, regardless of the hostility that is either, and this goes to your point, John, expected or more importantly, feared. Be the peacemaker, regardless of what the outcome might be. Other things that will go into this encyclical. You don't have an encyclical without it mentioning the principle of solidarity. You just don't. But if you've never read Gustavo Gutierrez, pick up his book. What does solidarity, an option for the poor, really mean? It doesn't mean build walls. It doesn't mean build borders. It doesn't mean stay in your comfort zone, right? And this is what I think Francis is next offering us a way to think about this. I think John the 23rd said, shift the framework, go into a different framework, from a framework of war to a framework of peace. And Francis is offering something to us that John the 23rd did not. That only happens when you encounter the other. You encounter through dialogue, you encounter face to face, you encounter side by side. You encounter by standing in another's shoes. So Bill Kavanaugh writes about Fratelli tutti. Pope Francis is calling us to create different kinds of spaces, different kinds of economic spaces, different kinds of political spaces, different kinds of social spaces, where we can encounter one another face to face, where we can regard each other as children of the same God and begin the difficult journey of love, I would say, and peace, right? No one said this would be easy. We know it's fraught with difficulty. And it's okay for us to admit we don't always want to do this. John the 23rd did not confront human sin. And I'm going to offer this to you. The number one human sin operating is our fear of failure, is our lack of belief in who we really are. And I say to my students, pick a side. Believe something. Believe in the dignity of the human person. Now, I'm going to follow up the statement because we were created in God's image. I said, fine, you don't want to jump on that bandwagon? Fine, don't jump on it yet. But believe in the dignity of the human person. You don't have that, what do you have? But I also think we're so scared of failing. Is there anybody perfect in this room? Yeah, we could be facetious, right? Seriously, is there anybody? There's no one perfect in this room, right? So let's stop throwing the mud at each other and making sure everybody is perfect like us, because there's no perfect, right? Even when I did the divorce and annulment talk, can we just talk about what's really going on in our lives? Let's not be ashamed of our dirty laundry. We all have it, people. Like literally and figuratively, correct? Like we all have dirty socks. Yes? Do we wash them? So sometimes, yeah. When we're washing, do we give each other a second chance? Do we wash the socks to give the socks another chance? Sometimes we even repair them, right? Because we say, well, your generation taught me this. Don't throw it out. There's this thing called the sewing machine. There's this thing called a thread and a needle. And when you actually throw out this material, where does it sit? In a landfill. We don't have to throw these things out, right? Let's not throw each other out, right? Let's not throw each other out because we look differently. Or this person's kid did this. This person's kid is gay. This person's kid had an abortion. This person's kid did this. No. This person's fill in the blank human being. You don't know what's going on, right? What does it mean when you shift to a framework of peace? What does it mean when you shift to a framework of optimism, right? What does it mean when you start putting these two pieces in conversation together? What can we learn from what happened in 1963 and in the 60s? You people should be on rooftops screaming at all of us right now. Learn from us. Don't go into hiding. Get out there and open your mouths and say what matters. Teach us how to get through 2023. This is a big one. Sorry, I'm going to read it. Okay. But I couldn't not include this from Anna Rowland. She is the St. Hilda Associate Professor of Catholic Social Thought and Practice from the Department of Theology and Religion at the University of Durham. She was there when Francis was handing out the encyclical. Okay. So she writes this of Fratelli Tutti. The names at the heart of this letter are those of the scriptures. We are brothers, sisters, neighbors, friends. The early Christians shaped their views of money, community, and politics based on this vision. That a theme so ancient, Fratelli Tutti, fraternity and friendship, is articulated with such urgency now is because Pope Francis fears a detachment from the view that we are all responsible for all related to all entitled to a just share of what has been given for the good of all. He continues, it is not a mockable fantasy to believe this. Francis writes with grief about the cultural cynicism and the impoverishment limiting our social imagination. It is not absurd to acknowledge kinship beyond borders, to crave cultures where social bonds are respected, and encounter and dialogue with the other is practiced. Fratelli Tutti is just as powerful as peace on earth. It's the added, I don't know, a car, spark plugs, seatbelt. Were there seatbelts in the 60s? I don't know. Let's just go with this. It's the added seatbelt. Here we go. It's the added seatbelt. It's the added airbag. It's the added Spotify playlist and internet connection, right? That was missing in Pacem and Terris. Francis gave it to us. Here's what we needed. to keep going, right? I do want to say there's two concerns out there, at least two, right? Julie Hanlon Rubio teaches at the Jesuit School of Theology out in California. If she had a chance to talk to Francis, she would say this: how far do you expect this message to go? When? Its tone, its genre, and its language are inescapably great against its core message. Where are women's voices? Women, not men, are asked to read themselves into the document. Craig Ford, who now teaches, I don't know where he was at he was in at St. Norbert's. There's a large moral difference between the thoughts of Christians and the thoughts that are Christian. I love him. He's a good colleague of mine. I was like, wow, that's a pretty good statement, right? Will Fratelli tutti be good news to those who are marginalized? Will the role of social love to create bonds and expand one's circle, or what is the role of social love to create one's bonds and expand one's circle? And this is where Craig and I align on this last point. When are we going to have a conversation about the hard truths? Will we dismantle the attitudes and initiatives of various evils that should be in our society? Or more importantly, when are we going to abandon our indifference? It's happening over there. It's not in my circle. It's not in my part of the world. Why should I care? Scrabble time. What's your brain scrabbling, scrambling, scrabbling, and doing? What are the letters in front of you? Talk at your small groups. And then I'm going to actually make sure that no one online has a question. Talk at your small groups. I'm going to give you 5 minutes. Now listen, when I pull you back together for a large group, don't do what my students do. It all goes silent, right? So talk in your small groups, the people around you, and then let's come back together for large group at 11 o'clock. I'm kind of looking at the time. At some point, I'm expecting an invitation to go on retreat with you because our little 3-hour sessions are never long enough. So I'm just saying we should, doesn't somebody have a cabin we can go to or whatever we're supposed to do? I mean, we should go in that direction. I'm so happy that you're all chitter chattering at your tables. Okay. Given the time and a few more things that I want to say, I'm gonna keep moving us. Okay. Because I want to keep circling here because I'm going to ask you to do something very soon, within the next 10 minutes. So remember, I was sort of, I'm selfish here. I'm moving. This is something I'm thinking about, and I really wanted to share it with you all. And I really wanted to get your feedback. Is there something here? I saw something in these two documents. I wasn't alive for the first one, and the second one, I don't really remember because it was 2020. I feel like I don't remember anything beyond yesterday, right? I don't know what that's technically called, or maybe it's just trying to raise 3 children and have a job and, keep moving on in the world. But I think there's something here, and I'm always someone who's deeply appreciative of the past, right? And I love this reading the signs of the times sort of messaging. But, here, I don't know if I have something here. I just threw these words together: hope towards an architecture of peace. What am I talking about? I'm not quite sure yet, right? But I do Craig and I have talked, and I like this concept of truth, hard truth, right? So I'm running with this truth, inspired by Francis. Engagement with brothers and sisters we do not know must be ongoing. Okay. No, no. Why'd you have to remind me of that? I was on such a happy train. What? Yeah. No, but I am there, right? I know, but hey, I get to be front and center, right? I mean, 60 years ago, I wouldn't have been front and center, right? Go ahead.
We always talk about man, that we included both men and women.
Yes.
And but some of them time when we had God became man, some interpret that women were excluded. We never did that, you know.
I know, my heart is just beating right now because I just want to go off on a massive tangent and be like, whatever, right? Like, I'm here, I'm talking. John, go ahead. See what you started, Dr. Mark. What? Joe, sorry. I can't read.
You know, about women,
Yeah, tell
you
me about
listen
women.
listen to what listen to what is true. In Hebrew, Holy Spirit has a feminine gender.
Yeah.
Oh, the New Testament was written in Greek. In Greek, Holy Spirit has a feminine gender. All of a sudden, we're using the word man as if, no, man does not include women, because women has man as a part of it. So if you're going to use anything, you should use women. And how many men would agree with that? And look at what happened in Latin. The Holy Spirit underwent a transgender operation. Oh, how terrible. And the Holy Spirit became a male. Oh, this is agonizing.
See why I love coming here? I mean, imagine if we had a weekend together, had some wine, you know, some alcohol. I mean, what would happen next? We would really encounter each other, right? Yes. Yeah, back to the 60s. Okay, maybe I don't want to go back there. I don't really know because I'm just so happy I get to be up here, right? Okay. Don't get me off track. You're like my students, right? Okay, so truth, engagement with brothers and sisters. How about we just say all people, right? Must be ongoing, right? This isn't a drop in time. This isn't like, let's do this once and call it good. Like you get a gold star. You don't get a gold star for doing this once, right? Another truth, encounters with others unlike us, they have to be genuine. I think we have to figure out what we mean by genuine, right? And again, I'm not trying to put us into a one size fits all. I need you to ask yourself, what would encounter with another or the other look like? Honoring you, honoring the other person, right? It's not going to be a one size fits all. The hard truth. I don't think we know what it means or how to look at another human person and not categorize them as either like or unlike. I don't think we spend enough time talking about how hard this really is and how much we cling to our categories because we are scared. And I think we all want to be loved. We're all washing the same socks though. They're different colors, but they're socks. What would that mean? So we're quick to judge, we're even faster to condemn. Do we see the need for a change of heart? Do we see the need to change our lifestyles? Because they are not sustainable, especially for future generations. Do we need to change our attitude about fill in the blank? Oh, I could say some pretty funny things right now, but I won't, though, right? Because I get you totally off track, right? do we see any need for solidarity? Or do we only see stake my claim is right, better go find my people because everybody else is stupid? In other words, are we ready to confront structural sin? Are we really ready? I mean, the solution is not to go all buy Teslas. That's not how we're going to change our reliance on gas. Because we can't all afford Teslas, correct? Last time I checked, it was a mighty expensive car, right? Yeah. Okay, but I'm gonna do one little devil's advocate with it because I love this, right? Is that really what we need? I'm asking that genuinely, right? Like, I worry about like what my kids think the way to solve problems really is. Like, is it the next scientific discovery? I don't know. The last time I checked, people are still dying of cancer. Sorry, I don't mean to, right? But true. There's a time and a place for progress, right? But like, if you can't learn to encounter the other, who cares about the progress? If you don't have a sense that the human person deserves dignity and we are called to be in solidarity, you can have all the Christian thoughts you want, but have none of the Christian actions. Francis is talking about the Good Samaritan because the Good Samaritan is the only one that stopped and did not see blood. Oh, can't go near it because it's a holy day. Did not see, oh, not from here. Looks different than me. Shouldn't really help, right? The Samaritan stopped and really said, oh my God, I've got to encounter this person. Because the person on the road was not, fill in the categories. The person on the road was a human being, stripped of their dignity. Oh, you're not alone. Yeah. Is she alone? She is not alone. It's interesting because I'm going to say something. Here's my warning, right? It's come to Maple Grove. Precious Maple Grove. Suburban Maple Grove. How dare they stand on our streets? That is exactly what I heard someone say. How dare they stand on our streets? And more importantly, back to the fear thing. Why is this happening in Maple Grove? I don't know, because you think stuff doesn't happen in Maple Grove? You know, I mean, it's just interesting. I mean, listen, this is about to get worse. This presentation's about to get worse. Like I'm spinning us. I'm taking us on a ride. Right. Well, and okay, and what I'm gonna get at, Dorothy, this is exactly where this is exactly where I want you to be. Because what I need you each individually to figure out is, what are you going to do about whatever you're going to decide is important to you in terms of peace? Because I can't have us go down the road of, okay, we all need to leave here and fix climate change, right? We all need to leave here and fix X, Y, and Z. But what I do need you to do is leave here reflecting. I'm pushing you to reflect and think, but in a second, in about 2 slides, I'm going to say, stop thinking and start deciding what you're going to do. And I need you to not think you're going to go and like solve the world's problems. But I need the ripple. I'm dropping the stone in the water, and I'm waiting for a ripple effect. And I'm begging you all to do it because I think you've already done it, right? You've lived through a lot. You should be teaching us a thing or two, right? No, you're just, you are hitting the nail on the head. This is the hard stuff, right? Listen, I'm surprised anybody even came to this. Like, why does she want to talk about peace? What, I mean, it's easier to spin, right? It's easier to spin in like the despair, right? And the stereotypes. And I mean, frankly, you used an easy example, right? I mean, we won't even talk about like, I mean, I really wanted my title to be like Roe v. Wade, gun violence, transgender, right? And, you know, I was like, woo, we can't have a title like that, right? But I mean, these are all the hard truths we're having to confront, right? And what we're going to do. So, I mean, first I want to say, I believe the past can teach us, right? I am here. I knew you would come. I believe you have something to offer us, right? So what can we learn in this moment? Joe, can I keep going? Well, sorry. What can we learn in this moment? This is where I want you to start thinking, right? I'm going to ask you, I'm going to start the ripple, right? I'm dropping the stone in the pond of life, right? The peace pond. I don't know, I'm just making that up right now, right? When you think about your personal circle, the Benedictines tell me every day, what am I hearing? What am I listening? Am I listening to just listen so that I can get the point that I want out of what the person is saying? Or am I listening with the ear of my heart? I hate that phrase. I mean, I said to so many sisters, why can't I just listen? And I remember Sister Mary Ruder saying to me, no, you just don't listen. You listen with the ear of the heart. And I was like, whatever. What does that mean? And she was like, there's a difference. Because when you just want to listen for your own self-gratification or to prove that you're right, that's one kind of listening. But that's not what Benedict's talking about, Kari-Shane. Benedict's talking about listening with the ear of the heart. Ooh, like I was like 19 years ago, whatever, Benedict, I'm out of here, right? No, this is my, what are my students really trying to tell me, right? So here's all this stuff I'm just going to put out there. What did you hear in this presentation? What's the kernel? What's the takeaway? What's calling you forward? What's calling you backwards? I don't want to do this, Kari-Shane. I don't want to go here. What's calling you to remain in place? Because it's hard. What does it mean to have our eyes open? What do you see in your own life as you think about moving towards an architecture of peace? What would it look like in your, let's just start with you, shifting to a framework of peace that John XXIII wanted to shift all of us to? What would be the first thing you would want to work on? I have a teenager. I need to stop reacting to her. I'm reacting to her. I'm taking it personally. I'm not understanding her highs and lows. I need to shut my mouth and listen to her with the ear of my heart, not all the crap I have going on. I have to shift to an architecture of peace with my middle daughter. Otherwise, I'm going to lose her. And she's not going to trust me. I have to really figure out what my priorities are with her. She's fantastic. She's outgoing. She's smarter than a whip. She's beyond empathetic. She's the Good Samaritan, and I am hardest on her. Why? I must shift to a framework of peace with my second daughter. What's missing? What's needed? What is one next achievable action step? Just one. For me right now, it's getting to a place where I am not reacting to my daughter. That's my step. I have to stop being so fearful. I have to let her fail. I have to know it's all going to be okay, right? Some of you could really offer me some parenting advice on the side, by the way. See why we need a retreat, right? This too will pass, right? So start with you. Start with you, where you are at. I don't care where the person is at next to you. I just need you to start with you and what you want to see happen as you shift from a framework of cynicism and all of these materialisms and everything that's going on, which is depressing. It's depressing out there. Shift, make the shift, and believe you can make the shift and what it would look like, right? Your local circle. These are just my musings, right? Why advocate? What does it mean to advocate? Who do I want to advocate for? See, judge, and act is the foundation of Catholic social teaching. What do I see in my local circle? In my local circle, what are the hard truths that I need to contend with? Judge, what's needed for your local circle in terms of activating an architecture of peace. Do we just sit here and say it's all fixed because we've got a system called Social Security? Okay, the last time I checked, it seems to me that we built a system of Social Security and we still said to people that get old, don't really care. Go into a home. And the people that care for people living in those homes are paid jack. And they're caring for human persons. So do we give ourselves a gold star that we built a system of Social Security, but we still put you in the home anyways? I don't really know. I don't really think we deserve a gold star. And I just walked by the memory care, or I drive by every morning past the memory facility. It's a beautiful facility in Maple Grove. I don't know. Haven't we just walked away from our responsibilities? Go into the memory care facility? Because we don't let people stop work and care for their elders. Because we just tell you, you've got to keep working. Not everyone has access to leave, to care for a parent, to care for a child, to grieve, to do anything. You're just supposed to get up the next day and go to work. And I would venture to say this, that mantra, get up and go to work and earn the bacon, is hardest for white men who have been told this is who you're supposed to be. You are not supposed to be the person that announces to your company, I must go on leave to care for my ailing mother. or ailing father. So yes, pat on the back. And this is a little bit to Dorothy's point, being facetious, but you're not wrong. What do we want? A gold star because we've got the services? The shame attached to those services is deep. Just like the shame attached to divorcing, the shame attached to admitting a mental health crisis in a family. Let me just tell you, every family has a mental health crisis. Who are we fooling? We all have it. And we need to be compassionate towards each other. So, see, judge, act. What is one next achievable action step on the local level? And maybe you're not even ready to move to the local level. That's fine. But think long and hard about who's serving in these local positions. Beyond your circle. Read and get inspired, right? Here are just a few fascinating books that are hot off the press. My colleague, Marcus Mesher, he wrote a book called The Ethics of Encounter. I don't know if I can't remember if I put it out there or not. My colleague, Maureen O'Connell, just published this, Undoing the Knots, 5 generations of American Catholic anti-Blackness. She's from Philadelphia. It is a stunning, stunning personal narrative about her family's approach to racism and white privilege. Fresh off the press is Karen Gonzalez's new book. This is gut-wrenching. Beyond Welcome, centering immigrants in our Christian response to immigration. Besides reading, besides figuring out what's going to fill your tank, see, judge, act. See, judge, act. What Catholic social teaching boils down to. See something, judge what must be done, and make a decision to act. Personally, locally, globally, but patience and hope. Patience, right? I probably should have had a slide that comes back to hope. You know, I'm going back to this slide just as sort of some inspiration here. If you would like, we literally have like 4 minutes. We have a question online that how do you do this dialogue when persons have truly evil intentions? You know, that's a very poignant question, and I don't have the perfect answer to that. My gut wants me to go right down the road of Jesus's trial, and what Jesus must have faced with both the Romans and the Jewish leaders and Pontius Pilate. When you decide to enter into the framework of peace, it doesn't guarantee you comfort. When you decide to encounter the other, nowhere does Francis say, by the way, this is going to feel great. By the way, we probably don't talk enough about the risk that's going to be involved in this, right? So on the one hand, I can totally understand why we stay in our comfort zones for all sorts of reasons. Because what Francis is asking us to do, and I think John the 23rd asked us to do 60 years later, was take a leap. And it was going to come with a lot of risk. But Paul, is it Paul? May I piggyback? Paul just shared with me what it was like to be in the Navy and being scared and equal armament and buildup. I don't know. I think we already live scared. We're already scared. Absolutely. Absolutely. This is going to come with a risk. But what is the risk if we don't take the risk of encounter? What is the risk if we don't shift the framework? I don't know the answer to that. I do think that what some people want more than anything is to keep us quiet. Right? To keep us quiet and to not be the beacon of hope. There's people banking on us not encountering the other and not being willing to step out of our comfort zones. They thrive off of it. It's all over the internet. Go and hide and be with your people and have your thoughts. Can you see why you need the see and you need the judge? But the most important part of the Catholic social teaching equation is the act piece. And it has to be you choosing the act piece, right? It has to be you choosing what is the pathway to hope and the pathway to encounter and optimism that I'm going to choose ongoing, day in and day out. And again, I'm not asking you to go solve the climate crisis, right? But the world, there's too many people banking on the fact we're not going to speak up. We should speak up. Advent is upon us. What does being the message of hope? What does giving the message of hope mean? What does it all mean? So I don't have, that's a very good, was it James? James, that's a really good question. And it's a question that like makes me just want to hide under the table. I don't know, James. There's no book about that I can read, right? But I also think like that is such a good question, but I am not going to let that question deter me, right? James, I'm not assuming that you're trying to deter me either. Like, we have to march forward. We have to shift to the framework. Put something else out there real quick. A takeaway, something that you might be thinking of. Hey, you're doing my classroom thing. Tell me your name. Diane. Diane, tell us what you're thinking.
Okay, at our little group, the first thought that I brought up is that I have friends who've been Benedictine students from grade school through the end of college. And a few years ago, I started hearing things from them like how awful Vatican II was and how awful Pope Francis is, and talking about the borders, well, we have to be sure that we can take care of ourselves. We can't take care of everybody. And so I asked the question, how do you approach, how do you deal thinking like that? And Joe brought up a good point, which maybe others would too, that one of the best things we can do is to ask them with regard to borders, well, do you think that God has put that border there? Do you think that he thinks differently about the people at the other side of the border and their needs?
There's no border with God the last time I checked, or at least that's the God I believe in. There's not a border. Yeah. None of this is going to be easy. You don't get on the peace train and the hope train because it's easy. But I'm also, remember, I'm going to also argue the train of cynicism that we're on. I don't think we're getting much joy from that either. Right?
Well, one thing that I can't feel hopeful in my life unless I pray. From the foundation for me is your whole talk today, and I came up with something, something that is an unlike. And before I can approach that unlike, I need to go to prayer. I need to beg Jesus to help me with it, because like you say, those changes that we have to make in our life are oftentimes so challenging that we say, I can't do it.
Right.
And many times I feel I personally can't do it unless I pray.
Sure.
And I find in my past, because I'm past 50, by the way, when I do that, I somehow get the strength to go ahead and do it. So prayer is the fun. I mean, I know this sounds like holy, but Jesus helps me, and my guardian angel helps me, because I can't do some things. I just can't do them, but I do.
Absolutely. And what I'm going to ask you to do is figure out what it is that works for you, right? My inspiration comes from being in the classroom, right? That is my church for me. Go ahead.
I think the one thing that I'm really kind of reflecting on here today, I'm hearing the Holy Spirit is just kind of touching everyone with a different calling to this shift in peace. You talk about John Paul II being the person you want to talk with. For me, it's Mother Teresa and Saint Teresa of Lisieux, and how they talk about the small ways in which we can make changes. Each one of us is gifted with some different perspective and different call. And I just feel like when we look at the broad picture, it can be very overwhelming. But when we look at the one thing that we're being challenged with today and take that as our starting point, it becomes less daunting, less overwhelming, less just draining. So
Absolutely. We need to wrap up, but can we say, instead of goodbye, could we say to be continued? Yeah. Could we say to be continued? And I'd love to hear on that yellow piece of paper, what do you want the to be continued to look like? Right? Because remember, sometimes I just sit in my office and I think of things by myself, right? What is the to be continued? What does it need to look like? Right? Voting, yeah. But yeah, voting. Yeah. Oh, that's coming up, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for your time this morning. It is so refreshing to see some of your faces again. I kind of forgot how much I missed this. I'm glad you're still here. I definitely pray for the people in your life that you have lost for whatever reason. Let's have this be to be continued. Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time this morning.